And he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I feel like I have to shit. Hey everybody, so if you guys don't know me, hi, my name is Nicole. If you do know me, hello gamers, emphasis on the gay. This is my new alt account where I will be posting some commentary as well as just random story times regarding my life and just other things that I think would be fun to make content off of, and a place where I can honestly just be a bit less chaotic than how I am on my main channel.
What is that?
Oh my god! Yes! Oh my god! Shit! Stop! So I'm hoping that this channel serves as a fun, you know, kind of a getaway for both of us from all of that chaos on my original channel. But anyways, today I'm going to be sharing the story of the time that I got appendicitis. So I have mentioned this before in previous live streams as well as in a video, but I kind of want to give just like a fuller story. So this happened all the way back in 2024 in September specifically. So if you don't know, obviously, you know, I've had other jobs than content creation. I'm very grateful I can do this full time now, but I've had other jobs. I've worked in retail, I've worked at Home Goods, I've worked at restaurants. Oh my God, I've worked at so many different restaurants. And I've also been in childcare. So I used to work at a daycare, and then after that, I became a nanny. I had been with these people for almost 3 years before I left. At the time of when I got appendicitis in September of 2024, I was with them for like maybe 2 years. So anyways, here's what happened. So the actual day I got appendicitis was September 28th, 2024, which was a Saturday. The day before, I had made this new dish. It's like an orzo throw it all in dish. So the people that I worked for, they were very, very busy. And the woman specifically did not enjoy cooking at all. So she would always make these like really easy, like one pan dishes that you just toss everything in there, you throw it in the microwave and you forget about, or sorry, not the microwave, in the oven, you forget about it, it bakes, and then you eat it. And so she had made one on Thursday, or I don't know, she made one that week. So I was feeding that to the kiddo. At the time, it was only one kid. They didn't have their second until a couple months later. But I was, you know, feeding that to the child, and I was like, this is really good. So when the mom came back home from work, I was like, what did you make? This was on Friday. So this was the day, literally the day before I actually, you know, had appendicitis. So I was like, what did you make? Like, this is so good. And she sent me the recipe. And when I left that day, like I said, I clocked out around like 5:30. I left, and instead of going straight home, I went to a grocery store and I bought all of the ingredients I would need in order to make that dish. Because I was like, I really want to make that. That's really good. And so I bought everything. I go home and I make the dish, and it's done in like 20 minutes. And now I have a whole, you know, like glass giant container full of food to last me the week. And, you know, obviously I can share some with my family. But the thing is, within this food, I had put in this like giant can of dried up, sun-dried tomatoes, and it was in oil. Like, that's how they kind of live. Not live, but like, that's just how they're stored. Sun-dried tomatoes are stored in olive oil. And I just toss all that in. My mom saw me tossing it in and she was like, Nicole, that's a lot of oil. I was like, Ma, like, this is what the recipe says to do. I'm gonna do it. And so I do what the recipe tells me to do. I eat it. I'm perfectly fine. I'm perfectly happy. And before any medical people start telling me, oh, now you're going to say that this caused the appendicitis. No, that's not what I'm going to say at all. That's what my mom thought. That's why I'm sharing this as like a prequel to what's going to happen. So anyways, the rest of my Friday goes really good. You know, I had finished the work day. I was starting the weekend. You're given 2 whole days off. Like, that is really, really fun. So I was looking forward to the weekend. The rest of the night goes amazing. I forget what I used to do. Like, I've always been a crocheter, so I think I maybe crocheted a bit. Maybe I'll put up on the screen some of the things I've done. At the time, I had gotten into Dandy's World, so I was playing a little bit with my sister, but I wasn't like super into it. Dang. But I went to bed maybe around like 11:30, like a pretty normal time. You know, I could maybe sleep in on Saturday. I don't. Long story short, I don't. I wake up at 3 in the morning. I remember it was 3, I think maybe 14 in the morning, 3:14 a.m. I wake up and I have this like sharp pain, but it's not necessarily sharp. Like, I don't know how to explain it. I'm gonna explain it in a second, but you gotta hear me out. It feels like you're constipated and you cannot use the restroom. You know, you can't do your second option. And I was like, what the heck? So I go to the bathroom and I tried to use the restroom and I could not use the restroom. So I go back to my bed and I'm laying there, and again, it's like this pain. I'm using my hands right now to like do the motions, but I forget. I have a VTuber, you can't see me. But basically, like, it was the middle of my stomach towards the left side, in all honesty. Guys, I was going in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the bathroom, in and out of the bathroom a million times. I cannot even begin to explain to you guys how often I was doing it. Then around 4, an hour later, I make myself chamomile tea. Chamomile is my favorite type of tea. Hello. I make myself some tea, you know, that usually helps you whenever you're nervous or you need to sleep, or including when you're strained and you need to use the restroom. So I make myself some tea, nothing happens. Hours 5, hours 6 go by. I have been in and out of the bathroom, I'm not even kidding you guys, at least 200 times. At the very least 200 times. And that sounds like an exaggeration, but it's really not. Like, I was going in and out of my bathroom 500 million times. My parents notice, and it's around 6 o'clock. So, you know, that's like a normalish time that people wake up. And my parents, they do have kind of like blue collar jobs. So they're always out of the house and working, and they wake up and they're like, Nicole, like, girl, are you good? Like, we've heard you going in and out of the bathroom a million times. I was like, I had been dealing with this pain for about 4 hours up until 7 o'clock, because it started at 3. And then at 7, I had enough. And I grabbed my keys. I put on my chanclas. I don't even change out of my pajamas. I don't even put a bra on. I grab my car keys and I walk out. And as I'm grabbing everything and as I'm putting my sandals on, my parents are like, Nicole, are you good? Do we need to take you somewhere? I was like, no ma, no pa, like, I gotta get out of here. I got to the hospital. I run into the ER and I get checked in. I give my license, my name, I sign some things, my insurance card, and I sat in the waiting room for like 5 minutes. They weren't that busy, honestly. And I sat there for maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. And then the nurse called me in and she did the proper, like, taking my vitals and asking me, you know, like, what's your pain level on a scale from 0 to 10? And then I get put into my room. So I'm sitting in my room. Maybe it didn't take long, maybe like 5 to 10 minutes. And so the doctor comes in and he's like, hey, like, I'm Dr. whatever. Is this Nicole? I'm like, yeah, I'm Nicole. And he's like, what's going on? And I'm like, I feel like I have to and I cannot for the life of me poop. And then he was like, okay, well, we'll take a look. And, you know, he starts like pressing on my belly area. And he's like, does this hurt? Does this hurt? And then once he gets to like the middle left, like, kind of region of my abdomen, I'm like wincing a bit. Like that hurts a bit. The very first thing that happens when you're admitted as a woman who is of age to, you know, menstruate, is that they're going to give you a cup to pee in and they're going to try to see if you're pregnant. They're going to ask you that a million times as well. The exception is if you are actively on your period. Like, when I've been to the doctor and I'm actively on my period, I tell them, like, oh, they asked me, like, when was your last menstrual flow? And I was like, oh, I'm currently on it right now. They don't do any pregnancy tests. Like, they believe you. They're not going to ask to see your tampon or your pad or anything. So yeah, so he gave me a cup. I peed in the cup. I obviously was not pregnant. And so the next course of action would be some medical exams. And so by that point, I did have an IV in. So they had given me just saline and stuff to hydrate. They had been pushing in, pain medications because I was expressing that I was in pain. And then came the test. So I had a CT. And like I said, since I had an IV, it's very easy for the doctors to, you know, push medication into you. So when I got up to the actual CT examination room, there were 2 women who tended to me, and she had told me, so we're gonna push this, it's an iodine contrast into your IV. And what it's going to do is it's going to make you feel like you're peeing yourself. It's going to give you a very warm sensation, specifically in, you know, your private areas. And I was like, whoa, where am I right now? But I was like, okay. And at first I didn't believe her, honestly. Like I was like, yeah, right, like whatever. But guys, you feel like you're pissing yourself on that table or on that stretcher. And it's so weird because I know I'm not actively, peeing, but it felt like I was. And so I did the scan. I was then, I was then put back in my room. And then, I waited maybe it was like 10 minutes. Again, this was very quick, thankfully. And the doctor came back in. And he was like, I have good news. I was like, oh, what is it? And he's like, you're not constipated. I was like, yay, like, that's good. And then he was like, but I do have bad news. I was like, oh, what's the bad news? And he was like, you have appendicitis. And I was like, oh, no. No, but I actually got so happy when he said that. And I started crying. I started tearing up because I do have like autoimmune disorders and stuff. And for a lot of the, not just autoimmune disorders, but also just like mental disorders. And for a lot of my life, I've felt like, my diagnosis wasn't correct, and I've had to fight a lot to get properly diagnosed. And thankfully now I am. So now I have like a really good, course of medication and also therapy that helps me actually live. And so I had started crying because finally, like, I felt like for the first time, I didn't have to, go back and forth. Like the doctor's telling me, oh, nothing's wrong. And also as a woman, a lot of my woman viewers, you guys are going to understand what I'm talking about. We're told that a lot of it is due to our hormones, to our period, to our menstrual cycle. And like, yes, that can be true. But, sometimes we just want something a bit thorough than, oh, it's just because you're a woman, or, oh, just hydrate and eat healthier. Because I've been doing all of that. I've been trying. And so I felt so happy that for the first time I was taken seriously, basically. So I started crying out of just joy because I was taken seriously. And the doctor, he gave me like gauze pads. There were no tissues. I don't know why there were no tissues in the room, but he gave me gauze pads to like clear my eyes. He was like, yeah, like, don't worry. He was so sweet. This doctor was such a sweetheart. And he was like, yeah, like, we're gonna get the surgeon to do your surgery. We're gonna get the OR ready, and you should be down there within the next hour or so because it will be a same-day surgery. I was like, okay. And after he had left the room, I called my mom and my dad, and I told them, like, I have appendicitis. And my mom started crying. She was like, what am I gonna do? I was like, Ma, like, I'm literally like 6 minutes away. Like, you can come and you can be with me. And then my dad was like, okay, just stay safe. I just gave away my family nickname. I'm gonna mute that. Something else I had to do was let my bosses at the time know, because if you don't know, as soon as the appendicitis isn't a super threatening, thankfully, which is very good, of course. But the one thing that does take quite a bit of time is recovery, because they cut through many layers of, abdominal tissue, and then they have to actually remove the appendix, which is an organ accessory, be it not, but still it is an organ. It's a part of your body. And then they have to stitch you up. And also you're on a ton of medications that make you sleepy, and they take your pain away. And then once those wear off, you're in a lot of pain. And then also, anytime you get a surgery within, like, honestly anywhere, but specifically around the abdomen, you want to be very careful, because if you're lifting very heavy objects or heavy things, you can develop a hernia. Your intestines or your organs can literally just like start spilling out. So you have to be very careful. So the recovery after appendicitis is possibly the most difficult part. I finally got operated on around 9 a.m. Then I finally woke up, guys. Oh my god. My brother showed me pictures that he had taken of me as soon as I got into the room, like almost post-op. Dude, these pictures are atrocious, and I will never ever let anybody see them. They were so bad. Next day, Sunday, I was discharged in like the morning, like around 10 or 11 in the morning. So I didn't stay there too long. and I went home. I had to pick up, we also had to pick up some medication at the CVS, and I just rest. The whole week I spent it resting. I was doing crochet. I was watching, I specifically watched the Salem witch trials. And yeah, I mean, that's basically it. Then thankfully I got better. I do still have scars on my body from it, but you know what? That's okay, because thankfully I'm here, so hooray! But yeah, that's basically the story of, the time I got appendicitis, and I am doing much better now. I have fully recovered. Anyways, that's it for me today. I hope you all have a wonderful day, stay safe, and remember that you are very, very loved. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!